Amherst Planning Board. The first item on our agenda tonight is to approve the minutes of January 16th, 2013. Any comments or changes to those minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Mr. Carson, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. All right, zoning subcommittee report. Ms. Brestrup.
And note that the items in your packet in terms of zoning do not reflect the latest information. And Mr. Tucker has distributed the latest packet for you.
Thank you. So the changes that were made, based on, so the packet that we got on Monday, things have changed since Monday, even though there was no zoning subcommittee meeting. Okay.
Perhaps
Yes.
Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Ford didn't hear that the latest zoning is on your desk in a little packet. What's different?
All right, Mr. Crowner.
So, as you know, the zoning subcommittee did not meet tonight because we accidentally failed to post the meeting. So I guess we have no update, but I would propose that we conduct what business might have occurred at ZSC at this time.
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
So I would propose that we attempt to cover what might have happened at ZSC in the time that we have now. In particular, we have yet to receive a definitive recommendation from the planning board about what course to take.
So what we had discussed last time was we had approved public hearings for for 4 of the proposed amendments. And as I recall leaving it, the zoning subcommittee was going to sort of take it back and see if there was any consensus about which of the mixed-use center zoning amendments you wanted to pursue.
No, not exactly. Our preference or our proposal is that we begin considering center zoning.
Okay.
And take a meeting or two and figure out whether village centers are what we should be working on, whether comm and mixed use amendments are what we should be working on, some combination of that. Just do form-based code. We just propose to work on it, but we don't have a specific item to focus on.
Okay. Mr. Tucker, did you want to weigh in on this?
I'd note that in the packet of zoning amendments that you got, which had a large paperclip on it, there is the schedule. Today at noon was the deadline for the submission of citizen petition articles, and the property owner at 400 Main Street, the 2 lots there, did submit a petition as well as a letter to the select board, so that will be, and there were more than enough registered voters. Only 10 are required for the annual town meeting, and they've already been certified, so that will be on the agenda, that rezoning of those properties. The second document in the packet of zoning amendments is the previous listing of potential amendments with items indicated by priority by check marks. They are not necessarily priority as in terms of going forward, but priority for working on them and then seeing, as Mr. Crowner just said, what gets done first and what can be accommodated, if anything further, at the Springtown meeting. Then the amendments themselves occur, with the exception of the 400 Main Street, in the order in which the first three correspond to the three of the four amendments that would be public hearings for which would be scheduled first. And then after that, they're in no particular order except that they're grouped by theme. Those consist of the converted dwelling standards and conditions, the attempt to reconcile Articles 14 and 17 from the fall town meeting. And that proposal would simply add a very little bit of language to standard and condition 6 and remove standard and condition 13, which was part of Article 14 at the fall. I don't know whether you want to talk about that or not. That's it's fairly straightforward. It proposes some amendment to 6, rather than just require owner occupancy or a resident manager. It's require owner occupancy or the ongoing presence of a qualified resident manager, just to clarify those aspects of resident management. I would note in a sidebar on this that the Zoning Board of Appeals has been, as you did last time, you looked at a proposal to build some new rental housing and advise the ZBA on how to proceed. The ZBA is having an administrative meeting next week to talk about how to determine qualification for resident managers and how to sort of organize their thinking about that. Staff are at least preliminarily thinking about recommending that it be done on the basis of sort of levels of intensity. That is to say, the smallest rental units that require resident management would require sort of the lowest and most basic and fundamental level of qualification, and then there are layers above that, depending on the number of units and the complexity of the residential use. So that's where that one stands. If you want, we can, if you wish, we can go run through them here and talk about them, or respond to questions about individual amendments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tucker. I think before we get into detail on those, I think that we've got to take the time up front to try and give some thought to which of these other potential amendments we want to bring forward for a town meeting. And primarily what I'm talking about is the choice of, this is the first 4 on this list. Form-based design regulations, Atkins Corner rezoning, North Amherst Village rezoning, and then the 3 subheadings under limited business and commercial district amendments, which are mixed uses, dimensional requirements, and maximum height. Has anyone on the board or indeed on staff given any thought to which, if any, or all of these would be practical to bring to spring town meeting? Mr. Crowner.
It would probably not be possible to bring all of them, but I think any one certainly we could do, and it's possible we could do more than one. I guess I would say, and I don't think that any of them are stand out as being closer than any other, in my opinion.
Ms. Kruger?
Yes, I think from the discussions at the zoning subcommittee, I agree with our subcommittee chair. We saw all of the center zoning as related until we really, and we reviewed drafts of everything except for revisions to North Amherst Village Center and Atkins Corner, which is more map changes than language changes, I believe, and we haven't actually spent the time. And we talked about was dedicating one subcommittee meeting at least to looking at specifically Atkins and North Amherst in order to make more of an assessment. But the changes to the business and commercial districts were kind of complementary to some possible map changes for Village Center rezoning. And even if the Village Center rezoning didn't go to town meeting or didn't succeed, we felt strongly that changes to our existing business and commercial zones were in order. So my sense is it's sort of a package, And we've separated the form-based code out, which we would either continue to pursue or not. And I had some questions specifically about our approach to that, which we weren't able to discuss because we didn't have our subcommittee meeting. And if we have a couple minutes now, since we have a quorum, so we're allowed to talk, maybe we could look at that for just a couple of minutes. I don't think that the full board has the draft of the form-based. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I don't,
We can,
well, we could see if people.
we
Why
can
don't
mail
you
that
tell us
out.
what you think, Connie?
Okay,
Just talk to us
all right,
about it.
I will, but I just know that you didn't get
We're
it
not
yet.
going to be able to read it in detail right now anyway.
No. Well, one way of approaching it is to have a general form-based code that applies to the districts that are listed here, general business, limited business, village center business, neighborhood business, and commercial, so that even existing zones that we're not looking at intensively, not rezoning, would have some basic design guidelines a la the form-based code that you saw last time. And then I think the planning director has recommended having specific additional form-based codes for North Amherst and Atkins. And on my first read-through, it seemed to me that the general form-based code might be adequate and that we didn't need to go to the next level at this point in having even more detailed, very prescriptive design codes for those other districts. And if people, I just wanted to sound that out in the subcommittee, that would, one, make it simpler, easier to present, and maybe enough of an advance in having design standards in village centers using the general code. So that's really a conceptual issue. It's not so much what the language says. It's, do we have this special overlays for each of the new village areas plus a general, or is having a general form-based code enough of a step forward and an advance?
Mr. Tucker?
I was just going to note that of the two village centers that the board has looked at to this point, you have an existing center which has an existing character. Much of the specialized and specific to the center form-based design regulations there were really intended to address potential changes in the village center residence district on the edges of that area rather than the mixed-use centers themselves. So that if there are few changes to the RVC, then that is less urgent. Atkins Corner, on the other hand, was the specific design regulations there were intended to help guide the very specific nature of that new village center. And I think those are perhaps more urgent, and perhaps, so you can sift and sort. You could wait until we've had the opportunity to do design studies of the other village centers and see if there's a way, whether they would require overlays or whether there's a way to integrate into the general regulations enough specificity that they would be covered. There's a range of possibility there.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Yes, Ms. Ford?
So my question is, if we did decide to do Atkins and North Amherst Village and look at them as an overlay type application, wouldn't we have to have the form-based first? I mean, I don't, it's kind of chicken or the egg for me. I don't see, to me, you'd have to either do all of it if we were going to do that approach, or just do the form-based design regulations. I mean, I still have lots of questions about how that needs to be put forward, the form-based design regulations. It still feels like a lot. And it's just really hard for me to imagine that and putting the overlays in front of everybody at town meeting all at the same time. But I don't see how you can do Atkins or North Amherst without the form-based design regulations conceptually in place. So I would not be uncomfortable. I mean, I know there's a lot of pressure around Atkins and there's a lot of pressure around moving North Amherst forward, but our time might really be best spent really making a strong presentation on the form-based zoning right now, get that in place, and then fall town meeting, have something that we can look, refer to as we look at these specific centers.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Yes, Mr. O'Keefe.
I agree very much with that approach. I think that we have seen in town meeting, has seen that form-based code is a complicated topic that's hard for people to wrap their heads around. What I hear Ms. Kruger and Ms. Ford describing, to me, sounds kind of like a step-by-step approach where we put in a set of sort of more generalized regulations that apply to all the districts listed anywhere in town. That doesn't preclude us from going forward in the future and doing more specific things in specific centers that respond to conditions in those centers. And I think that people might find it easier to understand and have less pages to wade through if we do that step-by-step approach and introduce this change to our zoning, this new way of doing zoning in a general way that applies everywhere, and not try to bite off more than we or not being issued the next time for us to come in.
So I have a question. Taking this step-by-step approach and imposing form-based design regulations on these 5 districts would presumably make it, well, it would provide explanation, but it would also impose additional restrictions on development, how development can happen within those zones. Generally speaking, I'm very skeptical of trying to do anything that makes development in this town more difficult. The fact is that, it's very difficult for businesses to relocate to Amherst. For instance, FCR, 5 College Public Radio, is leaving Amherst because they couldn't find a suitable site in Amherst to put a radio station. Instead, they're gonna move to downtown Springfield. And they've already arranged the space, and it's also, they're definitely going. And so I'm hesitant to do form-based design regulations, impose them on these districts without some type of a balancing factor that would encourage development within those regulations in terms of either increased density, the types of reduced setbacks and increased heights that are set forth in the, this other section here, that would have some give back and possibly offset the potential barriers to development from the form-based design regs. Yes, Ms. Brestrup.
I think that's what a combination of general form-based regulations and changes to the dimensional requirements for those business districts and the commercial district would do. It would give the changes, or dimensional changes would give the incentives, and then the form-based would give us what we want to look at visually.
So I see those two, even though they sort of sandwich the Atkins Corners in North Amherst on our little list here, I see those two as being more hand-in-hand than the Atkins Corner or North Amherst rezoning efforts, changes to the map. Mr. Tucker?
I won't repeat what Ms. Brestrup said, although I agree with it. But I would also point out that one of the reasons for approaching form-based zoning in the first place was not whether or not, I want to say this carefully, not whether or not residents who fear its consequences can read and understand a zoning bylaws, design regulations, but instead whether a developer and their consultants can read and understand those regulations. Part of the intent of the form-based code was to create in Amherst a more standardized, believe it or not, a more standardized set of regulations about design. What I recall, part of the argument for doing it was that right now what we have is a reasonably capricious system. We have a generalized set of design regulations that leave so much room that the boards are forced to sort of make design decisions on a case-by-case-by-case-by-case basis. There is no consistent set of design regulations for larger areas that is aimed at creating something in the future as individual properties respond to it, rather than responding to each property as they come along. So part of the function of form-based design regulations, whether they're general or whether they're specific, is to actually make it easier. As for WFCR, I would inquire as to whether or not that was part of UMass's effort under the direction of the governor to try and spur economic development in Springfield, which is a real goal of the university. Amherst Media spent time and could find a site. Whether or not they get it is another question, but I don't know why WFCR couldn't.
Aren't they asking for a rezoning in order to do that?
Yeah, they are. I said I didn't say that they were going to get it. I said
For the town meeting.
but they were able to find a site. I think it's, I would investigate that further as an example.
Point taken. Mr. Schreiber?
So actually, this is an interesting case study because the petition is to change that particular zone for Amherst Media to BN. And so if the form-based code and in other words, if both sets of changes are approved, then that's our first case study as to the form-based code. So in fact, one of my concerns about what we were looking at in terms of what was proposed there is that, I looked at that particular site and thought that would be, I wish that we actually had guidelines in place to basically inform or to really help inform the owners of that, what is preferred. Because to me, what was proposed seemed quite suburban. And actually, this is an opportunity to actually give guidance, with very few other restrictions as to, I can actually see that form-based code could be helpful to development rather than restrict.
Ms. Kruger?
I agree with you, Mr. Weber, about not wanting to damp down additional new development. And I think when we all get into the kind of nuts and bolts of what's in the general form-based code that we'll be bringing forward, to be careful that it not damp down, that it be, as you said, more recommendations or preferences. It's kind of imposing a design review bylaw to certain zones, which now our design review bylaws is only creates a recommending body, not a body with permitting authority. So we actually will be ramping up design regulations in a way that we haven't done before, which I think can be positive. But I would want to be very cautious that it not be too prescriptive and that it be more an expression of preferences and recommending direction. So I think that's going to be in the details.
As I recall, our proposed amendment in the last year had a discretionary out clause in it, right? That the provisions could be waived by the permitting authority, right? So, I mean, I can see that. And I certainly see the point of trying to, and your point is well taken about the potential rezoning for Amherst Media, that having some design regulations in place could make that more development, if it happens, more consistent with the existing neighborhood and with how we want the town in general to be growing. Is that right, Mr.
Yeah,
Schreiber?
so I think that one of the beauties of form-based design regulations is that, in fact, it can enable kind of denser development because one of the fears of density is because, is that we really have no idea what that means or what we'll get. But if you have an actual image of what that means, it makes it, more acceptable.
So, any more thoughts on that? Yes, Mr. Carson.
I think the last time, if I remember, a lot of people became fixated on worrying about architectural elements in the form-based code. And I think if we simplify things in a way that doesn't involve so much the design of the buildings, but their placement in the lots and where the parking will be and very elementary type of things instead of there have to be a certain number of gables or I think that just really threw people and they pictured everything looking the same.
Yeah,
If we could pare down on that, I think we would get farther with it.
I think the other resistance I heard was as far as this so-called streetscape pictures that by a lot of people were seen as sort of Disneylandish in their,
Right.
the fact that they would work if you had a perfectly flat plane laid out on a grid of streets, which Amherst is not. And to the width of the proposed, a lot of those streets was impractical and so forth. And I thought that while a good ideal, I didn't think that and I think a lot of people that we heard from didn't think the streetscapes were realistic in that code. But that's just a piece of it. So let's talk briefly about the other two. I'm not, does anyone want to say anything about going forward for Springtown meeting with Atkins Corners rezoning? Mr. Crowder?
So I just want to state what actually is proposed. And the proposal is not to develop the overlay, but just to change the map. Change the map in a way that we've already discussed, but not quite as much. Particularly in North Amherst, it's not nearly as much change as was originally proposed. And in Atkins, it's similar, but it could be done in pieces. We were thinking, the map actually shows all the changes possible, but we might propose one piece of it, just the part around Atkins Market, not necessarily across the street on either side. So so I just want to be clear that it's just a map change. It's not really the whole picture.
So is the same thing the case with North Amherst
Right,
too?
yes.
Okay. So I think that trying to do either one of those in conjunction with form-based is impractical because there's too many variables in play to say, first we're going to rezone it and then we're going to superimpose this zone on top of it. In my opinion, we need to do one or the other. And that goes for any of those last three in conjunction. I think to try to do any of those last three, it does cause a confusion as to what's really going to occur for me.
I'm sorry, which last three are you referring to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Atkins, North Amherst, and limited business. The other three, I'm calling them.
So we have under the center zoning amendments, we have several sort of categories of types. We have the form-based design regulations, which we've been discussing. We have the two village center map changes using existing zoning districts, not pursuing a form-based district, but just using, making alterations using the existing districts at our disposal. And then we have a number of changes that would affect some or most of, and this actually is where it says limited business and commercial districts, that should probably include village center business, because part of what was talked about at the last zoning subcommittee meeting was altering the dimensional requirements for that district as well, slightly to respond using some of the existing standards in other districts. And then there are some pieces that we could select out that are individual changes. The low impact development requirements is reasonably simple, and I think that was one of the ones that was scheduled for public hearing at the second meeting. Similarly, the agricultural processing use category is a fairly straightforward change. You're adding a new use category that has specific characteristics, and the intent is to support local agriculture in the village centers of various kinds. And the last two were not, or the last three were not given priority under that general category. So in terms of going forward, we know we can do the isolated pieces, and the question is, of all of the rest, what the subcommittee wanted to do was to have at them and see how far they could get, and then come back to the board and say, well, we're this far, and we think maybe we can do this piece or that piece or the other piece. That was the approach they had discussed.
Right. I'm trying to lead this discussion, but it's hard to, we're kind of circling. And I think Mr. Croner.
So the BL and COM and BBC changes, the possible amendments, are pretty important if we want to try and spark something, particularly in North Amherst and also in East Amherst Village Center, because that's where our comm districts are. And so our previous attempt was to suggest form-based design regulations and change the map. An alternate approach is to take what the zones that are there now and make them work better. So what we're told and what we understand, the reason they're not working better is because they're too restrictive on the kinds of development that the money is there for. So how can we accommodate that that impetus, but also get the form that we want? And so that's why those are being proposed. Either work on it as a village center, as a design, a form village center, or take what's there already and make it work better. So,
If I may, in order of complexity, the basic changes to the rules, dimensional and otherwise, in the existing districts is the simplest. Changing the maps, the zoning boundaries is the next simplest, and the form-based design regulations, whether they're general or specific, is the more complicated one. So in ascending order of difficulty, we may find that first category is where we end up. But we may get as far as the map changes. The map changes are not that complex to deal with. You're dealing with understood existing districts. And people's concern, if there is concern, will be about, well, if you're changing the rules for this district and now you're changing the boundary, what does that mean? And we would need to be able to answer those questions.
Yeah, I think that's the case already, even if we, go forward with the LID. That's an overlay type of provision, isn't
No, it's a set of development standards for properties over a certain size. And it's really principally aimed at dealing with stormwater and infiltration.
it? Okay.
That's its principal function.
So
Ms. Kruger?
it's admirable that you're trying to get us to pare this list down. And I'm thinking if I had to pick, in terms of prioritizing, I would pick the cluster under the limited business commercial. And while I'm sort of tempted to have Atkins Corner as a next level because it seems simpler, I'm actually trying to evaluate these picks on where I think there's activity and kind of development pressure happening, and I'm not sure Atkins is really needing as much attention as North Amherst. And I could certainly let go of some of the village center work if we could do changes to commercial and limited business and BVC combined with the general form-based code that applied to all of those districts. So that's kind of, I'm feeling the pressure around where I know development is just about to happen and it may not be as optimal as we would like, and kind of putting our attention there.
So you're right. Thank you, Ms. Kruger. I am trying to get this pared down. Because in addition to the 4 we've already scheduled public hearings for, we also discussed last time doing some technical fixes, which means that even without any of these village center, mixed-use center pieces of it, we're talking about 7 articles that the planning board is going to be proposing to town meeting, even without that. Mr. O'Keefe?
Yeah, and that's scary. But I agree completely with the prioritization that Ms. Kruger just enumerated, which is general form-based combined with the cluster under limited business and commercial, which is, it looks to me, probably including 3 or more separate articles. I think it might be a good idea to stop right there. To me, it's worth thinking about low-impact development and agricultural processing, so we've already talked about those. It's worth thinking about converted dwellings, because that's the technical fix to what we did last fall, because that's minor and necessary. And I would definitely advise stopping right there. Absent a compelling argument in favor of any of the technical fixes, I don't see the need to overwhelm town meeting by bringing 7 or 8 or 9 articles before town meeting. I think when we do that, it works to the detriment of all the other articles, and people get overwhelmed with zoning. That's not helpful for any of the things we're trying to pass. So unless there's a really compelling reason to be talking about those technical fixes, I would put those on the docket for the fall, try to overwhelm town meeting in the spring.
Mr. Tucker?
Let's see how compelling I can be. At a minimum, staff and the building commissioner, many of these originated with our conversations with the building commissioner. We would like to look at permitting for non-conforming properties among the technical fixes, because we have a circumstance, and I think I described it last time, but maybe I didn't, where we have different histories of interpretations of how you deal with nonconformities in different zoning districts, and that it just doesn't make any sense, and it leaves us open to challenge, and it has created problems when we have applicants trying to come in and make sense out of the process when they're dealing with nonconforming properties. Almost all of our center properties are nonconforming. They were built before zoning existed. And so that the nonconformities there, unless they were egregious, have been being ignored. But technically, we can't do that. And so we need to create a format through, or a pathway through which we can send those and have it make as much sense as what happens in the residential districts. So I would put in a plug for that one. And if need be, I'll bring the building commissioner in and he can be compelling.
Mr. Schreiber?
I think just to speak in favor of that particular one, it's really a matter of taking a principle that was already approved by town meeting for residential districts and really applying that to business districts. So I think that one's actually a pretty critical one for exactly the reasons that you were mentioning earlier, that it helps development in the right areas.
So let me propose this as a possible idea, just as long as we're throwing things out there. That we do the 7 that we already talked about doing and plan on bringing those to Springtown meeting. And that the zoning subcommittee then has the time pressure taken off to craft a consolidated fall proposal on the mixed-use center zoning amendments. That would be one way to try and do everything in a way without any of it being rushed or taken out of context. And I say that with the knowledge that the zoning subcommittee has already said that what you're really passionate about working about is to try and get the mixed center, work on these mixed-use center zoning amendments, and I keep hearing them as a package. Yes, Ms. Ford.
Could I hear what the 7 are?
Okay.
That would be proposed?
The 7 that we discussed at the last meeting were LID development requirements, agricultural processing use category,
That's right.
the converted dwellings conflict resolving, the 400 Main Street rezoning, which we're required to hold a hearing on, and then the 3 technical fixes, which are permitting for non-conforming properties, the site plan review waiver amendment, and parking calculations.
So,
No?
Not parking calculations.
so is it, I don't remember the site plan review waiver amendment. Is that something that's really important right now?
Well, we had a recent problem with it, but I think that one can probably wait till the fall. Of the 3 technical fixes, again, the priority is dealing with the
Permitting.
non-conforming property
Right.
question.
So I would,
All right, so I'm wrong about what I remember, so.
so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, 7 would be, if we had the 400 Main, it would be the form-based zoning regulations, the limited business and commercial amendments, LID development requirements, agricultural processing, converted dwellings, permitting for non-conforming properties, and 400 Main Street? Is that what we're talking about?
That's right. Bear in mind also that we're probably going to be having at least one hearing on the residential rental regulations when they're proposed. Ms. Brestrup?
Puzzled about the list that Ms.
I know.
just read. I think it was different from the list that Mr. Weber read.
It was different.
I wonder-
But I understand exactly
you're-
what you did.
What did I do?
You pared it down.
Mhm. Well,
No,
no,
no, I think
No,
that she expanded it.
No?
no,
But she expanded it to, I'm sorry.
I'm just laughing because,
So let me just.
I want to get it straight.
Okay, stop.
let's go back.
I said there were 7, and that was based on my understanding that we were going to consider the 3 technical fixes. I am understanding that technical fixes piece can now be down to the 1. That's a real priority, the permitting for non-conforming properties. That means that so far we have 5, not 6.
Yeah, please. Yeah, that's fair.
LID development requirements, agricultural processing use category, converted dwellings, permitting for non-conforming properties, and 400 Main Street rezoning.
So not form-based and not,
Well, those are the 5 that we got before we get to that
Oh.
first section, Connie.
oh, okay.
Those are the
That's-
5
I'm
that-
just trying to follow.
Right, so those are the 5 that we're definitely, I understand it, that we're definitely gonna try to bring forward. One of which is a citizen protection.
So,
Sorry, the 5 that you just specifically named are the
Yes.
5 we're definitely going to bring forward.
That's my
So-
understanding.
So you in your earlier remarks mentioned taking the time pressure off the subcommittee with respect to the form-based stuff.
Yes, well-
So are you proposing that we consider that in the fall as opposed to the spring?
Well, yes, that was what I was throwing on the table.
Okay,
Um,
making sure we're clear on what.
So I'm trying to, so, I know this
You get
is
your-
confusing to try and get
Yep.
through, so we'll just
Go
do it one thing at a time. Ms. Kruger?
oh, I wonder if the board would consider maybe letting go of LID or agricultural processing, because they weren't huge priorities. They were just kind of like, oh, those are easy, we can pick them off. I would rather let those go for now. I know we might have scheduled public hearings, but we don't have to hold them. There isn't a huge constituency clamoring at the door for those, and there's no presenting problem per se, so I
Actually-
would be willing to let those go.
The public hearings, if I may, that have been scheduled so far are just for LID and 400 Main. We have not yet scheduled public hearings for the others. We could, if you decide to, you could drop LID.
Agricultural processing.
Oh,
It's
really?
March 6th.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry. The February 20th,
Into the newsroom.
February 20th is the 400 Main and converted dwellings.
Right.
So LID hasn't even been, the legal ad hasn't gone out yet. So if you still have an opportunity to set that aside for, and I think what I would recommend is, the zoning subcommittee was considering the possibility of having a meeting next week. And what they could do is focus on the, some of the center amendments and themselves try and decide or recommend which of those to go forward with, which are the simpler ones, which are the absorbable ones that are not big map changes, that are not big design requirements, but changes in dimensions or changes in the way in which mixed uses are regulated, those kinds of things. And then we could schedule things from that point on. Yes, Chris?
Ms. Brestrup?
I just wanted to point out that the legal ad for the March 6th is due on the 15th of February. So that is before the next time that you're going to meet. So it would be good if you could at least determine 2 more hearings that you'd be willing to have on March 6th. And then we could advertise them next Friday.
Well, I mean, we can have the,
Or you could
we can have the
postpone.
hearings and decide not to bring them. I mean, the meetings can be 5 minutes long.
You could certainly bring 400 Main Street forward.
That's coming.
It's already scheduled.
That's already
Oh,
coming.
that's right.
That's already on for the 20th. And I won't be here on March 6th, so someone else will need to chair that one.
Our vice chair.
So I don't want to spend too much more time on this because we do have an applicant waiting and I don't want to keep them too long. But I'm willing to really, I hope, defer to what the zoning subcommittee wants to do on this because you're the ones who are going to be making the sausage, as they say. Mr. Tucker?
I was going to ask if the board would, because of the timing, would authorize the subcommittee to pick no more than a certain number, for instance, of those amendments at their next meeting that we could then schedule public hearing for within the time frame for that legal ad. Following on what you just said.
Comments from the rest of the board? Comments from the rest of the board about dropping LID and agricultural processing for the spring? Mr. O'Keefe?
So what I'm hearing from the ZSC members is a desire to drop those two in order to be able to proceed with the form-based regulations. Is that a correct interpretation of the
If we have
remarks
to
that have
choose,
come from
that
that end
would
of
be
the
the
table?
choice.
Yeah, so I mean, I would support that, I guess.
Okay, me too.
Given that we're saying that we're going to defer to their judgment.
All right,
I'm happy to have you folks really help direct us, because I think that's appropriate. So I think this is really helpful to me as a zoning subcommittee member to hear what.
Mr. Rosnoy, did you want to weigh in at all?
Well, I was a little surprised that the discussion took the turn it did, because in the beginning, it seemed that the dichotomy was between doing form-based design along with Atkins Corner and North Amherst, or not doing all of those together. And suddenly we got totally away from form-based design, and got onto this list of other ones. So I think it's come back to where it started.
Yes, Ms. Ford?
It sounds like we want to narrow this down to no more than 5. That's what I'm hearing. Bring no more than 5 articles. I don't know, is that, I'm not part of the zoning subcommittee, and I don't know whether that's putting limitations on your work, or whether it's even reasonable to say that at this point, but what I'm hearing is that we've got this down to 5, and that feels like a reasonable number of articles to bring forward. 6?
Well, one of these is
It depends on,
Except for the fact that the BL and COM package is actually, as I read it, a minimum of 3 articles.
I think it's 2 articles.
Oh,
I think it's 2.
because of use change.
And 400 Main, we're not presenting it, we just have to hold a hearing.
Correct, I don't think
So it doesn't really count.
So 6.
If you set a number, then the subcommittee has something to work toward.
Because if they're big ones or little ones, that's the
Yeah.
problem, so I,
Yeah.
you know.
Softballs or hardballs.
I would think that one, really what we're talking about is one manageable chunk of mixed-use center zoning amendment. And whether that consists of 2 articles that complement each other, or whether you can manage to put them into one article, I think that's what we're talking about. Or something that town meeting can digest in a relatively short period of time, and that's gonna be palatable.
And I think,
Ms. Ford?
and ideally, in relation to the form-based design regulations. I mean, I'm hearing you say that was the sandwich, that these 2 were the,
That was my saying.
yeah, exactly, that makes sense to me. So, that those 2 in relation to each other right now would be the way to approach this.
I would think so, yeah.
This and this, which, in just the general form base, applying to existing.
Changing,
I'm good with that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that has a lot going for it in terms of the Atkins Corner and North Amherst rezoning is still very raw, I guess is the best way to put it. And we might want to just postpone that piece of it, would be my thinking. So, Mr. O'Keefe?
So I'm personally comfortable with where we are here, and I think that the ZSC has a sufficient set of information to take the next step. So I'm more than happy to, if they're going to meet next week and need to make a decision on scheduling public hearings for March 6th, to let them take tonight's discussion and schedule 2 probably public hearings for March 6th on the topics that they feel are most achievable in that time frame with the provision that those not be Atkins corners and North Amherst rezoning, not changes specifically. If we decide to move ahead with that, I think we need more discussion with the board. But other than that, but it makes the most sense. I'm comfortable with that.
All right, anything else? All right, are you clear on your charge? Yep. Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. That's very, very helpful. Oh, would you like to comment? We do have a public comment session, so this is your chance to come and speak.
Well, confirmation perhaps of what I've understood.
Come on up.
Or
tell-
not.
tell
Can I
us.
do that for a start? I'm Melissa Perot, Precinct 1, and I'm understanding at the moment that you're going to do a general form-based design regulation that is related to the BG, BLB, VCB, and COM districts throughout town. So it's not a village-related thing. And I understand that the Atkins Corner rezoning and map and the North Amherst Village rezoning and map is going to wait. And I understand, I think, that you are not going to be doing the LID development requirements or the agricultural processing use. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good. I didn't do too badly after all that. Okay. And you
Well
are,
said.
and you are going to do an article on converted dwellings. And I understand from what you've been saying that your focus is on really getting something together, and this is where I get a bit vague, that will allow an emphasis on mixed use throughout the town or in the village centers. I'm not sure which, or whether it covers all of them. And is that a new zoning that you're looking for the mixed use? Because my understanding, as far as North Amherst, I'm not really conversant with anywhere else, is that the commercial district, which is the majority of what's available there, is already commercial, which is the zoning that allows mixed use. So I'm having a problem understanding why development can't go forward in that area with that lovely general form-based design code to guide it, as is. And I'm also curious to know why Cinder's recent attempt to develop some mixed use on the north side of Coles Road has met with what she says is a requirement that she have 4-bedroom rental units on top of the businesses, and that is simply not doable for her. Now, I just don't understand why that would be. I haven't been able to find in the regs where it says that mixed use has to have these giant apartments or units on top of them. So could you help me with that, or is this not an appropriate time?
Sure, Mr. Tucker, go ahead.
The way that mixed uses are regulated in the commercial district now, there are a number of rigorous limitations on the ability to add the residential units. And they are tied to, as in many other districts they are not, the need to have enough lot area per additional unit. So what you end up with, in her case, the conceptual plan you're talking about, is that the lot on which the building being conceptually designed sits is not big enough to accommodate more than 4 units in a mixed-use building. And that's part of the problem. We have, in the commercial district, it is also limited to no more than 6 units on upper floors while it's still by right. And if you go to more than 6 units, it requires a special permit. And there are a number of other, in the mixed-use standards and conditions and in some of the dimensional regulations as they exist. There are just strong limitations on the ability to do mixed uses in the commercial district, and that's one of the things that the subcommittee is looking at.
Is that anywhere on this
Yes.
list of dealing with that?
It's under, actually, all of those, all three of those. Mixed uses, dimensional requirements, maximum,
Mixed use, dimensional.
all of those questions end up being limitations on your someone's ability to put residential units or residential units that make sense on upper floors.
Okay, now, is this something you're going to be tackling? No, it's not. Oh, it is?
Yes, that's something.
That
we're
comes
looking at,
under-
Try to decide which of these to do.
The line that says limited business.
Yeah.
And commercial and all the dashes under the.
Right.
That's one of the things we prioritized. as
Okay,
well.
so this is a do. Okay, and that will be the zoning subcommittee doing it. So the zoning subcommittee is going to be doing that and the general form-based regulation. Hey, not too bad, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perot. Very useful summary. Right, anything else on zoning before we let our very patient applicant begin his presentation? Okay, hearing none, why don't you come on up to the microphone and welcome. I have to read a little legal spiel before you begin.
Yep.
In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, this public hearing has been duly advertised, and notice has been posted in the town hall and sent to abutters. The hearing is being held to provide the opportunity for interested citizens to be informed about and to comment on this proposed site plan. SPR 2013-00007/M16642, 61 Strong Street, Ronald Bohonowitz.
Yep.
For Wildwood Daycare, requesting site plan review approval for roof replacement and to convert the ground level univent system to a rooftop ducted system. Map 11B, parcel 146. This is in the RN zoning district. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Chairman, I'll be recusing myself from this application. due
Thank you,
to-
Mr. Rosner.
Due to a conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Rosner. Any other disclosures or conflicts? Okay.
Okay, my name's Ron Bohanowitz. I am actually our Director of Facilities for the entire town in this district, the school district, the regional district, and actually the town of Pelham School as well. The 61 Strong Street property is actually owned by the town, and we lease it to Community Action Daycare. And the daycare provides services for infants through approximately 5 years old in it. They have been one of our tenants for, I've been here 7 years now, and they've been there for the 7 years. They've probably been there 10, 15 years, a long time. This building falls under an opportunity for us to obtain community block grant money because of the use and the occupants that are using it. And a couple of years ago, we secured some money to do some internal renovations to it, and we fixed carpeting, flooring, we painted the entire inside, and additionally, we repainted the outside. And when we did that, the outside of the building has been always multicolored. It was a cream color, a brown color, and then doors had unique, what I would call primary colors, red, green, blue colors on them. When we repainted it to more of just a monochromic type of thing where we have what I would call an ivory color, and then we put it into anything that was doors, windows, and so forth, to an accent color, just a few shades off. The building actually looks beautiful, in my opinion, it looks beautiful. But it does look very good, and our tenants have taken well to it. A year ago or so, we went after some community block grant money now to replace the roof on that building. The roof had some wind damage, and we've patched it, and additionally, it's starting to show its age. So we went after money for that, and at the same time, we went after money to renovate the HVAC, which is the heating, air conditioning, and ventilation system in that building. The current system is what we call a univent system. It's a little package system that sits in the wall. It brings in the air from the outside, and it heats it or cools it. In this particular case, when it picks up the outside air, which we are required by law to provide a certain amount of outside air at all times, we're picking up air that's right on the ground, where the grass clippings are, where the rotting leaves are, and that type of stuff. So the air quality that we're bringing into the building by design, and this is not uncommon in schools and hotels and all that kind of stuff because it's convenient and easy, the air quality is not the best in the world. So in our design, those units, by the way, are showing their age. We have outside of each classroom, we have a standalone, what we would call a condensing compressor unit, and it's encaged in some pressure-treated lumber to protect it from the students while they're outside playing. Those units are rusting, and again, they're showing their age. So when we went to design the new HVAC system, what we want to do is put on what we call a packaged rooftop system. And the packaged rooftop system is a heating and an air conditioning system, which now we would pull our fresh air from above the ground. And then we would pipe it through ductwork into each classroom. And each classroom, we also would have what we call a return duct or ventilation out going back to the system. And what we do is we mix fresh air from the outside, and then we mix internal warm air together, and we call that economizing. And what it does, essentially, in this case, is the rooftop unit provides us a better quality air for these students. Now, with that said, we placed it on the roof, and we I won't say easily, but we also could have kept that rooftop unit on the ground, but if we put that rooftop unit on the ground, we're not taking advantage of the opportunity to provide a better quality air system there. If you saw also in the packages that I sent, we do have to extend their own chimney by approximately 5 feet, because we don't want to have fumes from the chimney going into the rooftop unit, then going back into the building. I will say that right now, and this is a little bit off topic, but the Pelham school system has that scenario right this second. And I'm actually in the process of extending the Pelham chimney by 7 to 10 feet to eliminate the problem. And it's kind of crazy, but we didn't have the problem until the building next door was built. The big white building was built next door, and it kind of changed the airflows. So in this case, at Strong Street, we want to make sure that that chimney's above that system. The reason I'm here is I'm going to change the look of the building. Really not impacting the site. The only thing that I'm impacting on the site is I'm removing 5 separate condensing units and 5 little, they look almost like little baby pig pens, are going to be gone on the site. But the building itself, I'm going to change the look of the building because I'm going to add the rooftop unit to the back of the building, extend the chimney, and then the other thing that I want to do is I want to change the roof shingle color. The current color is a brick red. It's a pretty bright red, and I want to tone it down to more of a earth tone color, something that will blend a little bit better with the color of the building and the backdrop that's there. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any type of questions you may have.
What type of fuel are you burning?
Well, right now, currently, we are burning oil. The rooftop unit that we are specifying is a natural gas / propane unit. What we're going to do is we're going to run the heat off of the roof unit under propane for, I'm going to say, a year to a year and a half. And I have plans and I have requests into the JCPC for money for the Wildwood School to convert the Wildwood School to natural gas, taking a pipeline from the middle school up to Wildwood. At the time I bring the pipe up to Wildwood, we're going to go from Wildwood over to the childcare and do a natural gas conversion there as well. So we're about a year and a half to 2 years away from that. A couple of the members that were there today for the site visit, I told them this, is that I converted a year ago the Fort River School to natural gas. And Wildwood and Fort River are identical. They're 108,000 square feet each. I mean, if I put you in one on blind footage and brought you to the other, you wouldn't know you were in a different school. And we have budgeted this year, and my numbers may not be exact, but they're directionally correct. We have budgeted $35,000 for natural gas in the Fort River School, and we have budgeted $109,000 in oil for Wildwood School. I do for the town, I don't know why I do, but I do. I am involved in the commodity buying of our diesel fuel, our electricity, and our natural gas. And I know that right now, the price of oil would have to be somewhere around 80 cents a gallon to be competitive with natural gas. Now, so right now, I've been personally, for the town, trying to jump on as much natural gas as I possibly can. It does a few things for us. It improves our carbon footprint. It economically helps us with the money. It helps us from the service point of view. It increases our reliability on our equipment. And in the last 4 years, I'm a little bit off topic here, but I have converted 2 furnaces at the high school to natural gas. There's 4 total. I converted 3 at the middle school to natural gas. There's 3 only at the middle school. And I've converted Fort River. And when I did Fort River, one of the things I did is we pulled the tank out of the ground. So now we took another element. I don't like underground storage tanks. Ours are all certified and monitored and all that kind of stuff, but we took that tank out of the ground as well, because the last thing we ever want is to have a leak and have an environmental problem.
Thank you. I'll talk about the site visit a little bit. And this property, just for the folks at home, this is just the building is directly between the Wildwood Elementary School and the Regional Middle School. And it's accessed through a common driveway with Wildwood School. It sits above the playing fields, the middle school playing fields. And it's currently used as a daycare and nursery school. It says here the building was built in the 1990s by local architect Peter Kitchell. And you've already described, the applicant has already described the changes to the appearance of the building that have been made and that are intended to be made. There was a question, what was the design intent of the architect Peter Kitchell when he designed the building? Does anyone know the answer to that question? Ms. Kruger.
Well, maybe I should have said this in the disclosure time, but I worked on this project for the town, and we were lucky enough to have a special block grant allocation a year when the state had additional money, and the state actually paid for the whole construction on surplus town land. And the actual lead architect was Bill Austin. He was in the design firm of Kitchell and Austin, but it was Mr. Austin who did this. And the intention was to have a really beautiful and playful and colorful and enticing childcare environment for the Hampshire Community Action provider. And there was an allocation, I think, for a certain amount of an affordability component for affordable childcare. It was very exciting to work on that from the town side and get a chance to do this. And not very many cities or towns own the structure of a daycare center, sometimes a burden, but also a real boon to the community. So it's sort of an exercise in letting go for me, because I really like the design, and I will admit that the HVAC in those little individually never worked right from what I heard from some of the administrators there. So I think changing the heating, even though it looks in the drawing kind of imposing to put it up, I think that's a really great change. But I don't know why Mr. Kitchell is listed as the lead architect, because he wasn't that involved, but
Ms. Brestrup?
It was a discussion we had this morning at the site visit. Someone who was at the site visit said that Mr. Kitchell was the designer, so I took that
Just
on
okay.
face value.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Let's see. Ms. Ford, did you want to comment on the design review board's look at this?
We heard the same presentation and there were no concerns or, there was a little bit of discussion about the new chimney proposed and the height of it, and I can see that it has been, these drawings have been updated a little bit to reflect really what now, the true height of what it's gonna be. Yeah. But there weren't any concerns or objections at that time.
the red roof.
And
Let it go, right?
I mean, it comes down to a matter of opinion at this
Yeah.
point. I think we all probably have an opinion. We kind of talked about that a little bit. Are those the same samples that you, yes, so there was basically, we were presented with a range of choices, and basically said, yes, that seems like an appropriate range of choices. And I don't know if you've chosen one? Do you-
No, I really haven't, and again, color is not a big thing for me.
Yeah, yeah.
I really just, thought
So the
that,
choices are the ones that are
Right.
Xed on here. Yeah.
I was just trying to tone it down a little bit from the red.
You don't like the red? Don't like the red?
Huh?
You don't like the red?
Well, I think that the red, really, to be honest with you, when you look at the building, all you see is the red.
Yeah.
And you don't see the building,
Mm-hmm.
and even some of the architectural features that they put into the building. The other thing that, in my office is down in the middle school, and I have a window, and I can see that building beautifully. And like this morning, when I looked up, the roof is all white. And when
Oh.
I knew the members were gonna come, I go,
So you shoveled it off for them.
Thank you for shoveling it.
Yeah.
Mr. Carson?
Just have a question about the color of the roof with the samples. Is there any factor involved in color of the roof in terms of heat absorption or making it cooler in the summer? Would it be better to have a dark roof or a lighter roof, or does it not matter that much?
well, and I think it's in this, in our environment, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I mean, during the winter, we want the black roof, and during the summer, we want the. But I would say we have a longer winter than we have summer. So, a darker color probably would be.
More
better.
cotton.
So I'm trying to stay in that neutral state, where, you need to get somebody to come that all winter.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, my big thing with the roof is, to be perfectly honest with you, one of the things, that I do have responsibility for like 16 town buildings. And the biggest thing when I first came aboard, I wanted to do is I just wanted to make the buildings watertight was the first issue. After that.
Now, a man can dream, can he?
Work on other things, but in this case, again, I just want to make sure that that roof stays there for a while.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Keefe?
What can you tell us about the noise level of the rooftop units as compared to the units that are on the ground today?
From the noise, what the public would hear, that is used to public and so forth, should be nothing. If anything, we have 5 units that are running, that could run at any given time. And generally, those type of units are like, if you have one that, it's very similar to a residential house. If you have a neighbor with one of those compressors and it kicks on and off, and you can hear it, there's 5 of them there. The rooftop unit is gonna have mic a little bit out, or?
Yeah, the
Okay.
mic went out.
Great, okay. So Keith, I think the bottom line would be that it is not gonna be any more noise, and I would say that I think it's gonna be less. Inside the building, also, I think it'd be the same thing. We're not gonna hear vibration or anything off of the roof. The thing we have to do is structurally, in this project, and this hurt us on cost-wise, but we have to do it. We have to build some structure, literally from the roof all the way down, and pour footings inside the hallways of the buildings to support the weight. Not that there's a lot of weight, but to make sure that it's supported. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Thank you.
And there are specific dB levels and stuff I could obtain if you wanted them.
All right, anything else?
I mean, if anybody has a color they really prefer, I mean, I would be happy to go with it.
Refer to the design review.
Here's your chance.
Color by committee, oh my God.
If we all picked the one, design review board, we all kind of focused on the one that's up in the upper right corner.
Right corner, yeah.
Yeah, that's got a
Yeah.
little, whatever that one's called, yeah.
The,
Ms. Brestrup?
Do you want to know what it's called? It's Weatherwood.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the one you said you have on your roof, Miss Brester?
It's close. Yeah.
Mr. Schreiber?
What is the siding?
The siding is made up of 3 different materials. One part of the siding is plastic, and it's a tan color. There's other siding that is actually wood, and that's the ivory color, are the 2 things. So there's a combination of siding, which is plastic, and wood. The piece of structure that we're putting on the roof, what we're gonna do is we're gonna match the siding we put on the side of the structure that we have up there with the siding that's on the building. And then there's, around the top, they wanted to have just a rail when we first designed it. And then I said I'd like to have blocked louvers so you can't see the unit there, is what I asked them to do. So one of the things they were nervous about, and they did some calculations, they said that we have to have a certain amount of airflow through there. And they were concerned whether the louvers would have enough air or not. And they came back and they did tell me that the louvers are doable but the louvers will be silver in color. And I will say from some of my own experience, if you look at the old structures of antennas, many of the times they were always silver, and the reason they were silver is so that when you looked at the sky, they were somewhat transparent.
Interesting. I never knew that. Anything more on the roof? I mean, going once, going, yes, Mr. Schreiber?
Does your architect have an opinion on the color?
No, he doesn't. It'd be up to us as the owner to pick the color.
All right, we'll address any additional concerns as we go through the site plan review criteria. And this is section 11.24 of the zoning bylaw. We use these criteria to evaluate the site plan proposals that come before us. And before I start, I'd like to note that the applicant has requested waivers for the landscape plan, lighting plan, soil erosion plan, sign plan, site management plan, and traffic impact statement. Does anybody on the board have any issues with granting the proposed waivers? All right. All the applicable concerns raised in the development application report, which consisted of possible noise, that was the only concern raised, have been addressed. 11.240 of the zoning bylaw, general requirements, conformance with appropriate provisions of the zoning bylaw. Yes. Protection of town amenities and abutting properties through minimizing detrimental or offensive actions. Yes. 2402, protection of abutting properties from noise, odor, dust, vibration, We're satisfied that this is at least as good as the existing system as far as noise and probably better. 2403, provision of adequate recreational facilities, this is not applicable. 2410, not applicable. 2411, not applicable. 2412, not applicable. 2413, not applicable. 2414, not applicable. 2415, not applicable. 2416, protection of adjacent properties, intrusion of air and water, pollution, et cetera. We're satisfied this is okay. 2417 is not applicable. 2418 is not applicable. 2419 is not applicable. 2420 is not applicable. 2421 is not applicable. 2422, not applicable. 2423 is good. 2424, screening. There are louvers proposed for the rooftop unit, which the board found acceptable. 2430, not applicable. 2431, not applicable. 2432 through 2437 are not applicable. Were there any conditions anybody wanted to put into this? Bike rack.
I'm in.
You want us to you want us to make you have a bike rack?
Oh, bike rack, I thought he said bike ride.
In place of one of the existing AC units?
Is there a bike rack on the site?
I don't know, but I do know that we have, I have access to some. And I'm not talking portable ones, I'm talking the ones you would cement in the ground.
To the next job.
And I'm more than willing to place, I don't know where exactly I would place it there, but I'm more than happy to place one there somewhere.
If you want to do it, but you can do it, but we're not going to,
No, but I will, I mean,
Unless you want us
Staff.
to.
no, I don't want you to add it to it,
No.
but I will look, and seriously, we have some.
ask and ye shall receive.
I don't think it's relevant to it.
It's not relevant at all.
But it's not a bad thing.
No.
And if we're there, it's just, my guys will drill holes and put it in and do it. It's not a big deal.
You come to the planning board and you're bound to get some of this stuff.
That's
It's just
okay.
inevitable. So if
But I'm
not,
still up for the bike ride.
we have some avid cyclists on the board. Is there any further comment on this? Can we have a motion, please? Mr. O'Keefe?
I move to close the public hearing.
Oh,
Second.
Seeing
All in favor? It's unanimous, public, with one extension, the public hearing is closed. That's Mr. Rosnoy abstaining. Well, no, I guess, is he recused? or is he-
recused.
well, he's not part of the vote.
He's not part of the vote. Okay, so
So
he's,
he left at a certain time. and
this
isn't
happens
here.
so rarely, okay. So he's not part of the vote. All right,
Not here.
7-0. Another motion, please. Mr. O'Keefe?
I move that the board approve site plan review SPR 2013-00007/42 Strong Street for Wildwood Daycare with the board's standard conditions and with all the requested waivers.
Second?
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you for your excellent presentation, and good luck with the project.
All right, thank you. Just off the record as well, just, that building, obviously, I have responsibility for the middle school and all the properties and so forth. It started to get, all the bushes started to get grown up around it, and it started to cloud that building. And my staff actually, I instructed them to go up there. We trimmed all the bushes around it, and we even, just over the edge where the fields are, there was a whole bunch of sumac and so forth. And we cleaned a lot of that up, again, to preserve the look of the building, because it is a beautiful little building. And our intent was to keep that. looking
very
the way it
much.
is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
It's really nicely done.
Thank you again.
Have a
Okay,
good
thanks
night.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I looked at it. It sounded good.
we welcome Mr. Rosnoy back. All right, we're moving to old business. We have two proposed letters to the ZBA with respect to special permit applications that we reviewed on a advisory basis. The first one being ZBA 2013/9, 179 Northampton Road. And this was a proposal, to put in a two-family home. And having reviewed that application and had a presentation and discussed it, staff in conjunction, and I edited slightly, came up with the letter that you have in your packets. Ms. Brestrup?
There was actually a later version that you have to the left of your desks.
Oh, yeah, look in your packet that was on our desks. So this is, the letter would read as follows. At its meeting on January 16th, 2013, the Amherst Planning Board, having received a presentation regarding the above referenced project, it needs a D at the end of reference, voted 7-0 to recommend to the ZBA that this application be approved. We think the project is an appropriate use for the location and that the owners will provide the ongoing services of a qualified professional property management company within the meaning of section 3.3211 of the zoning bylaw. Does anybody have any comments or changes to that? If not, I'll sign that letter when it's
And it's fixed.
And the second letter was with respect to presidential apartments, and that's ZBA 2013-14. And I won't read this whole one, but I understand there was some comment on a couple of the items on this list. Does someone on the board have, Ms. Brestrup?
There was a change to the item having to do with a link between North Village and Presidential Apartments. It was more of a clarification, because this link now will provide emergency access to both North Village and to Presidential Apartments. It wasn't really worded correctly, and Ms. Kruger noted that.
That was item number 4 on the list?
I'm sorry, item number 4.
Thank you. Mr. O'Keefe?
Just to clarify, we've got two versions of this one also, and I've actually
Yeah.
lost track of which one came in my packet.
Oh, you have,
One of
okay,
them
so,
has 7 points on the front, and one of them
yes.
has 2.
The 7-point is the newer version. Ms. Kruger?
A question, are we at that, are we able to?
Sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm following. On the back, where we have 3 other points that are suggestions, I just wasn't sure from our discussion, or just my memory of our discussion last time, if we had actually collectively made a decision about what we were asking for the, around the affordable units. And I know that Mr. Crowner had made a suggestion, and there was some other discussion, and I was just not sure if we were, where we had landed as a board.
I'll defer to Mr. Crowner on that.
Well, my preference would be that they actually do require, but the sentence before it says offer for consideration, so I think that's, it doesn't say that we really think you should do this, but just don't forget about it.
So but the numbers match what you're,
Yes.
okay. Anything else on this one?
Excuse me. I
Yes, ma'am.
noticed that this letter also has a D missing on the first page. as you pointed
Oh,
out
yeah.
on the second page. But you could sign the second page, and I'll fix the first page if you would. be
All right,
so-
except that it's printed double-sided, so.
No, but I have the original.
Oh, you do? Okay, I'll be happy to. And if you email me the other one, I'll print and sign it and mail it back to you.
Just write it in, big deal. Don't print it out again.
All right, so that's that. Any topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to this meeting?
No topics.
Planning board schedule. We discussed this briefly before. We have meetings coming up. February 20th is our next meeting, and we'll be having public hearings on the 400 Main Street rezoning and on converted dwellings. Anything else on our February 20th agenda? Ms. Brestrup?
I'm going to just look at my list here. At one point, Mr. Weber, said that he wanted the board to discuss non-conforming properties and the site plan review waiver and not have the zoning subcommittee spend its time on that. So I wondered if you wanted me to put an item on the agenda for the planning board to discuss those two items.
I don't think so. I think those were two that we
Or are those
scratched off
two
the
that you've
list.
scratched off the list? Okay.
Oh, permitting for non-conforming properties, though,
For
was one.
non-conforming
Yes.
properties, that's still one.
Yep. We should put,
Site plan review waiver is no longer on your list, so I will put that on the agenda for your meeting that night.
all right. After that, we have March 6th, public hearings to be determined. March 20th. Do we have any applications coming in that we're going to be likely to see during those times?
We are aware that applications are about to be submitted, but they haven't been submitted yet, and one of them is something that the DRB saw last night, which Ms. Ford may want to describe a little bit more when she gets to her report.
Tell you
Would you
now
like to
if you
jump the,
want.
why don't you jump the gun?
Jump right in. The Unitarian Church in town is expanding and going to take over most of the parking lot that they own the property of and have apparently leased to the town all these years, and the lease expired. Anyway, Hugh Riddle's been working on a design. It's a very nice adaptation of a lot of the architectural features that exist in the building. So it's going to be a very nice project. There's the one sticking point that came up or the one issue with this is that they have to take out two of the pin oaks that are along Kellogg Street there, which one of which has already been designated by the tree warden to be taken down, but then there's a second one that needs to be taken down because of because of the extent of the foundation that will need to be built, and so it's.
Is that really giant one? That we've been
There's four of them,
we've been
actually. There's four of them, and they,
Rooting,
I think we
yeah.
take it for
Right.
granted that they have this, incredible canopy. So it'll change a little bit, the character of that edge of the street, but there's gonna be lots of, they're going to be improving this site all the way around, so I think you'll be pleased to see how that looks.
Oh, that's good. That's really a centerpiece of downtown, so
Yeah.
be excited to see that.
And before I get off DRB, I need to put the plug in here. We need one more member on that committee. And if you know of anybody that's interested, I would encourage you to encourage them
And
to
what
put
would,
an application.
what would be the characteristics of a successful applicant for that spot?
Well, people that are on the committee right now are either architects or designers of some, that involved in something that, or have an avid interest in design and what things look like. I think that's,
So
Mr. Schreiber?
does the successful candidate have to be a voter in Amherst?
Oh, they have to be a resident of Amherst.
Can they be a resident but not a,
I don't know if they have to be registered to vote necessarily.
Over 18 and of sound mind.
yeah, damn, that only meets. All right, back to the drawing board.
we meet at 6:30 on Tuesday, typically on a Tuesday night, and meetings rarely go beyond 45 minutes. It's usually if we see 3 applications in an evening, that's a lot, it goes pretty quick, and it's usually a lot of fun. So, but we really need at least one more person. It's-
Okay, so all you listening at home, Mr. Schreiber?
Because in a case like this, there's at least one person from Kuhn-Riddle on the.
Yes, and he's
Yeah.
constantly having to recuse himself.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then- Which puts the pressure on the rest of us that we can't have a quorum. We need 3 of us for a quorum, so. Are we able to have more than 5 on the, is it just?
5.
It's just 5 always typically?
Unless we
Yeah.
change the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so that's what, we only got.
Put that on the
4
work
right now.
list.
Sometimes business people have served who have an interest in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you
professionals.
have to be a professional designer. I think you just have to have a,
David Hennion was on for years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. An art interest.
Well, thank you, Ms. Ford, for the report and for the plug. Any topics not reasonably anticipated, new business?
No, not that I know of.
A&Rs,
No A&Rs.
upcoming ZBA applications.
I have 2 upcoming ZBA applications. One is John S. Lane and Company up in the Notch. They have a special permit to continue operating, and they need to come back every 5 years to get a renewal of their special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. They are not currently doing any work near West Street in Amherst, or 116 in Amherst. I believe they are doing some work in Granby that's closer to the road. And I can pass this map around. You can take a look at it, and you can see roughly where they are working.
What, for those of us who might not be familiar with the work that they do, what
I'm
is it?
sorry, it's a quarrying operation. It's on the north side of 116 as you go through the Notch. There's a big wall there, and there used to be a big milling machine, but that machine has been taken down, and all of their work in Amherst is now at least 300 feet back from the road.
I see, thank you.
In addition to that, there's Todd Michael's J. Gumbo's Restaurant, which would like to extend its hours of operation from 11:30 until 2 a.m., and thereby becoming a Class 2 restaurant. But apparently, they won't be making any changes to their exterior. They'll just be asking for that change of time, hours of operation.
Any interest from the board on either of those? Thank you, Ms. Brestrup. We just talked about upcoming site plan reviews. Subcommittee reports, PVPC,
No report?
CPAC is not present. Agricultural Commission is meeting next week. They continue to struggle with quorum issues. If anybody knows anyone that wants to serve on the AgCom, they are actively looking for members who have an interest in farming. I'm not even going to ask about the task force. Or redevelopment authority. Design Review Board we've heard from. Housing and Sheltering Committee.
Briefly, I attended a meeting of theirs this morning, and I wanted to let you know that they're planning to host another public meeting to look at the draft of the housing production plan, and their meeting is Tuesday, March 5th, 7 to 9 p.m. They were hoping to have it at the Jones Library, but they're not sure they can get a room. So there'll be more information. When it's out, I'll distribute it, or have staff distribute it electronically to planning board members if they'd like to learn more about the housing production plan and come to that meeting if possible. And they also were, most of the meeting, we were talking about the draft plan, the strategy section, and but then the housing committee started talking about their own subcommittees, and they started out with 3 subcommittees, and they want to change some of those. And the co-chair, Greg Stutzman, suggested that one of their new subcommittees be a zoning subcommittee. So they're actually very interested in some of the things that we've been doing, and maybe taking their own look at revising the town's inclusionary zoning section of the zoning bylaw. And I know the zoning subcommittee hasn't talked about it but it's something that might go on our work plan for a future town meeting, not spring, obviously, but a place to work in tandem, perhaps with the Housing and Sheltering Committee. And there are some problems, perceived problems with that part of the bylaw, along some of the lines that you've suggested. So I wanted to let you know that. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, that's Ms. Anderson. I know that they met last week. I don't know the outcome. Did anyone go to that meeting? Yes, Ms.
They
Brescher.
also met this past Tuesday, so
Okay.
they are meeting every week, and they had quite an audience and discussed a lot of things. I think they have a draft of the document that has been circulated, at least among themselves, and some staff people have copies of that. So they're working on that.
Is that posted on the website?
I don't believe it's posted.
Oh, okay. Nate Malloy at our meeting this morning thought it was posted.
I can ask if you are interested in seeing the draft. I
Yes,
can
please.
get you copies of it.
That's good news. I'm glad to hear that they've got a draft. Report of the chair, there's snow on the way. Report of staff,
No report.
no report. That's it, folks, we're done. Thank you.
Whoa.